In modern Christianity, we have created a language or a vocabulary all our own. We use words all the time that we think we understand the meaning of, or we very clearly do understand the meaning that we've poured into the words, or that our experiences have caused us to come to a conclusion that this is what this word means. We've created this vocabulary that oftentimes makes it difficult to communicate with a world that doesn't have our vocabulary. It makes it difficult for us to talk to people who think differently or use words differently than we do. And so as we get ready to start on this study of the book of Philippians, I think it's really important that we have a good, complete definition of the word joy. Oh, so many times in this book is talked to us about joy and what kind of joy we're supposed to have. But if we don't have a good definition of what that word means, we'll never understand the significance of the message that Paul is trying to communicate to us. I'm convinced that in the world that we live in today, what the world needs right now is true, authentic, and pure joy. So as we begin this study, I think it's important for us to come up with a definition, or at least agree on a definition of what joy means. I've studied a lot about that word, and some people suggest that it's a decision that you make, that I'm going to choose today to be joyful. The problem I have with that is that if I could choose the way I was going to feel, if I could choose the things that were going to happen, I could be so much more in control of my life. I can have so much more control of the things that happen and how I respond to them. But oftentimes, we don't have the ability to control or to choose joy. If we don't understand what it properly means, we may think somehow that just by being better or thinking differently, that we can then have this true joy. And what happens oftentimes to me, and I'm sure it's happened to you as well, is I come up very short. I'm not feeling very joyful. I'm not joyous. I have chosen and chosen and chosen, but yet it's still not working. And so for me, this idea that joy is a choice, it doesn't work for me, because there's so many people who would choose joy if they could, but yet today they're not feeling joy. One of the definitions that I really like about the word joy comes from John Piper, and he says it this way. He says, joy is a good feeling in the soul that is produced by the Holy Spirit. A good feeling in the soul that is produced by the Holy Spirit. Let's take a minute and let's break those components down. First of all, he says it this way. He says that the joy is a good feeling, or it's an emotion. It's something that just naturally happens to us. When something happens where you're scared, or there's a moment when you are frightened, you don't have the time to stop and think and say, I'm going to choose right now to be scared, or I'm going to choose not to be scared. No, it's one of those things that just happens to you. That when it comes to a moment of something to be fearful of, your body automatically knows intrinsically how to respond to that. You see, he says that feeling, that the joy is a good feeling in the soul. It is that good feeling that is just natural to us. He says that it also comes in the soul. You see, it's not something that we think about. It's not a decision that we make. It's not a choice that we create. It's instead, it's something that is deeply embedded in the very person that we are. It's something that is a natural response. It's not something that we can control or turn on and off, but it is a very part of the core of who we are. See, when I think about joy, and I think about the type of joy that circumvents or supersedes all of my circumstances, I need a joy that is just natural, that I don't have a time to think about or a way for me to manipulate it, but instead it just happens. John Piper says it's a good feeling in the soul. At the very core, the very bottom layer of who we are, it is a feeling that comes from there. But he goes on to say this, that it is produced, and this is the most important part of this entire definition. He said it is produced by the Holy Spirit. You see, I am convinced that you and I will never face joy in many of our circumstances. We would never look at our situation or our circumstances and say, today, in the midst of this horrible atrocity that I'm dealing with right now, there is no way that I'm going to choose joy. It just doesn't work that way. You see, it comes on by a transformation, by a Holy Spirit who is actively at work in each one of us. You see, I have this feeling in my soul that is put there not by my will or not by my habits, but instead it is put there by the transformational power of a Holy Spirit that's working inside of me. I'm excited about this book of Philippians. I think it's very timely for us right now as we face some of the struggles and challenges that we face in our lives. I think each one of us needs to understand how we get to this place of having joy that supersedes our circumstances. Every Saturday night at 6:30, we're going to join together and we're going to study this book, this great letter of Paul to the Philippians. And I just encourage you to put it on your calendar, to set a reminder to join me every week as we unpack this fantastic message that is so pertinent, not just to them, but to you and to me. Joy that transcends our circumstances. Join me, 6:30. See you there. God bless.